Now, on Enough Said, with K-Fans Dan Barrero and Justin Guard. Enough Said.
Welcome back to another edition of Enough Said. My name is Dan Barrero, and helping us out today with Guardsy in Arizona tracking the Final Four, my good friend AP Sports guy, Johnny Krawcynski. John, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
And Lori Fisher will get us both started in the control booth as always. Hi, Lori.
Hi, guys. Welcome, John. The folks at Target Field are getting ready for the home opener this Monday. The team will take on the Kansas City Royals. Is there any excitement surrounding the team? And if not, you know, there are the new foods to be excited about. Dan?
Well, that's the tradition now, sadly, right?
That's what we have to
AP
market.
Sports guy is that for most of the last half decade, it's been about, well, it's a perfect marriage because media jackals get free food. So they all show up the day before or the week before. And guess what? They're going to give positive reviews of all that free food. And some of it's new and some of it's creative. And sadly, that has been their best marketing tool, which tells you all you need to know about the state of the baseball.
That's right, and really there are more additions to the menu at Target Field than there has been to the club, which lost all those games last year. So that's the big problem is I think the luster of Target Field has worn off clearly, and so until fans get a reason to come back and watch, it's really a glorified sports bar right now. That's what we're doing. You come, you enjoy the nice weather.
Part of that ticket plan they had, right? Where
exactly.
You can get, I don't remember, was it $69 for to the first 30, whatever it was, a bunch of games, and it was anybody going to watch the game, or was it just going to be that floating bar you're talking about?
You have a surly, you have you have a Krawcynski sausage, and then who cares about the game? But that's what it's turned into. And I mean, maybe it's the right approach. Maybe they need to be patient and be pragmatic about it. But I don't think that they can be surprised that people aren't frothing at the mouth to go and watch this club right now.
You know what's weird? What's funny to me is in a perverse sort of way. Maybe Falvey and Levine have a better marketing mind than we think. They're supposed to be baseball guys, but they made a move. We assume it was them more than Molly. Yesterday, that put the Twins on the front page in a way they otherwise wouldn't have been, and that was the apparently. I'm told I'm supposed to be shocked by the news that Park, who was
the Korean Babe Ruth,
terrible hitter last year, but it had a nice spring, isn't with the big team. And everybody, I guess you're the ball guy, but I was having a hard time getting quite as horrified as everybody else, given all the other conditions with this club. But it did get them attention that if he'd been on the roster, everybody had been yawning about the story today.
That's right, and I think when you look at, he did have a great spring, there's no question, but we are told all the time, if someone has a bad spring, don't worry about that.
Exactly right.
That's not a big problem. If someone has a great spring, well, then they're locked in, and here they go, here comes a big season. And Park did struggle last year, and if you look at what he did this spring, a lot of the home runs that he hit weren't exactly off Verlander and, Roger Clemens in his prime.
Good point.
It was minor league guys. And so maybe there's a little fool's gold there. Send him down to AAA and see if it's still, if it's legit or not. You can bring him back.
No one picked him up when you cut him originally,
That's
so
right.
you're going to get a shot at him.
I have to cut you guys off. We have to move on. Let's talk Timberwolves. The expectations were high for this team with a new coach and young players. There's a slim chance they could make the playoffs, but Rubio was on a roll Thursday night. What now, John?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing that they can look at and be encouraged about is Rubio's development into, he was just a terrible shooter. And that really took away from the rest of his game, which he's an elite passer, very good defender, good all-around glue guy, but he just couldn't shoot. And now, in the month of March, he's shooting like 45%, 44% from three. So you have something to cling to there as a positive, which they need right now because in general, it's been a disappointing season. Yeah. Right now, they only have one more victory than they had last year. They were expected to be up in the high 30s, I think was a reasonable goal. They're probably not going to get there. So I think they go into the offseason with still a lot of questions about the fit with Tibbs and these players. Are these players mature enough mentally and physically to kind of accept the kind of coaching that Tibbs wants to give them? And so they have a lot of questions to answer, but one thing they can feel good about is Ricky is really playing well and has developed that offensive part of his game.
Last night, we've never associated the word unstoppable with Ricky Rubio.
That's right.
Last night, he was borderline unstoppable offensively, which I don't know that you can count on, but was pretty interesting in of itself. I'm with you on that. I'm a Rubiobo like you are, and it's difficult for me to believe that they haven't turned the page on the notion of trading him unless they get some ridiculous deal back, because you got to have somebody who can play that spot. My disappointment, there's two things. One, I think they have to make the playoffs next year.
Absolutely.
They have to.
No
Taylor has got to put that on them, and I've got to believe Tibbs understands that. But secondly, I am still pretty disappointed in the lack of consistency defensively. I knew it was going to be a process in convincing the players of what it took. But then you had that window where, John, it looked like they did get it.
Yeah.
And then they stopped doing it. And that's what bugs me a little bit. And that's why, if I'm the owner, I'm asking that question to Tibbs. All right,
Final point?
Why can't we get to the point where, that is a more consistent effort defensively is more consistent part of what we've done, because it has not been consistent at all this year.
Enough said. Let's move on. It's been 20 years since the Gophers basketball team went to the Final Four with Coach Clem Haskins. And because of the academic fraud scandal, many of those wins all stripped from the record. What do we need to do with Clem Haskins' legacy? Like, where does it stand, Dan?
Well, we don't need to romanticize it, and we don't need to build him a statue, and we don't need, as far as I'm concerned, to welcome him back to get a standing ovation. By the way, he's been back.
He has been
it's
back.
It's not like he's never been
back. He got a
back.
standing ovation on the court.
Exactly.
I was there that night.
I don't understand. My biggest problem with it really is with Clem. If Clem, in the most recent story that was in the Star Tribune, had shown even a morsel of phony humility or acknowledgement of, hey, some of this is on me or us, the way even one of his players did, Bobby Jackson, maybe we can have the talk. But when a guy basically says, you owe us, then I see red, and I say, do you want me to go through the list of things that you are responsible for in a program where you are very much in charge of it because you're a hands-on guy? Because I'll give you the list of all the papers that were written, the efforts to basically intimidate counselors, et cetera. We'll go down the list if you want.
Right, and that's, I think, the biggest indictment here is that the one person who had the perspective was the player, Bobby Jackson, who kind of looked back and said, if we had to do it over again, we wouldn't have. Right. And bring us back and let us talk to the kids, let us be the cautionary tale to learn from about how kind of you can get swept up in the success and want to just cut corners and do whatever it takes. And I think there is a market to bring Clem and Bobby and all those guys back and really teach the new age and the new era of Gophers about the pitfalls that are there. And you can do that and still acknowledge the success of the past without kind of papering over it. But you definitely don't need to apologize. No. He should be hoping that the university forgives him for everything he put that program through.
Especially he got money out of the deal. I guess I don't understand no coach is ever going to admit to everything, and I don't think you have to get very specific, but he's never admitted to anything after all these years. And so there's such a lack of self-awareness or a stubbornness about it. It's like he wants to be treated like a legend, like, again, that something is owed him. And Gopher fans will tell me, but wait, what about North Carolina afterwards and all these other ones? I'm not going to pretend that those are good. There maybe was some skating going on at North Carolina, but let's face it. We kind of set the standard for academic fraud, and I guess we can be proud that others have built upon it. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it was any less heinous what was being done at that time.
And here's the thing. They got caught. That's the bottom line. Is you can say in big-time college sports there's cheating or there's corner cutting all over the place, and you're probably true. But they got caught, and so if you get caught, there are consequences. And the consequences were it buried this program.
They're still, you could argue, they're
still digging out of it. Yeah, absolutely. Because even when they have a decent season, there's still that skepticism about what's around the corner. And, maybe they are going back to what Clem had to do to climb out of that hole. And so it really has colored the program forever. And one of the crown jewels of the Minneapolis.
I don't believe there was really any ill intent. But as I said, social media doesn't have a lot of context. It's a picture. And unfortunately, the picture that was depicting there is not the true plot of the whole play.
New Prague High School canceled its spring play. The Foreigner was supposed to have its first performance last week, but school officials canceled it after a picture of the play's villains dressed in KKK robes caused a controversy on social media. School officials say they will review how they choose plays in the future and make changes if necessary. Dan?
This is, I guess, a sign of the times. I guess it's a perfect illustration of the social media world in which we live, in which, as Principal Guy said, there's no allowance for the possibility of context. Or if you have a photo in which you see, I think it was 4 or 5 individuals in Klan outfits, there's almost an assumption that there's a tacit endorsement of what they represent. And I'm saddened about this story because what it means is I think we all lose, because there was nothing wrong with this play. They shouldn't be questioning the play, because the play is a very tough story, apparently, funny in places, tough in other places, that exposes some residents of I think a Georgia town, right, that they have a Klan in their background, basically. And it's an attempt to reveal the folly of that and the insidious nature of it. But it all is going to get, the ability apparently to tell these stories is going to be lost under the guise of, we got 2 students who are jarred by it. And I don't deny that some people may be more jarred by that sign or by that image, but if we can't, I don't know how we tell the stories of our past if we are not allowed to do so in, whether it's play form. There's places where To Kill a Mockingbird, people are questioning whether it should even be in there because of the use of the N-word in the book. And I think we all lose. Sorry, I think we all lose because we all we get 4 people to overreact to the image, and then everybody curls up and says, uh-oh, we got to back off and let's cancel everything.
Well, and that's the thing, is it was a Snapchat image, and there was nothing really offensive about it because it said, I think you're going to want to come.
Yes.
And as a saying, like, hey, this is an important play. Come in and see it. And my question is, the person who sent that Snapchat out, what was his or her audience? Maybe 50 people? I mean, if it's a high school kid in a school of 1,300? So how are you letting that influence the whole decision to pull it? And, I mean, they said in the story that there are some people that are uncomfortable with parts of our past.
Right.
But you have to be uncomfortable with that, and it's about learning from that past.
Allegedly.
And feeling the uncomfort and making sure that stuff doesn't come to the fore again.
I think some of the concern might have been, I think there were, in the story it said 13 African-American students. Some of the concern was, is the image going to be jarring for a different reason for them, as opposed to that not being afraid, not you know, that just having to see that image is upsetting. And I can't possibly deny that because I'm not in that person's shoes. But I'll say again, how exactly are we if on the other hand, we're constantly told by many groups to America, especially white America, we're not going to let you look away. Well, that's the irony of this. The play was forcing people to look at something rather grisly in the past, and now that's gone because for whatever reason they said, oh, there was a potential protest. I think that's what got in the way. And I'd ask the question to the protesters, what are you looking for?
Okay, we have to leave there.
It's starting a conversation and then eliminating the conversation just on one picture.
And we're not going to have any more conversations if every time the reaction is to overreact this way.
And sorry, we could keep going on this, but we have to make the tough turn and talk about leggings. Some people are calling it non-news. We heard it, but you have to admit it is the national talker. 2 girls denied boarding a United Airlines flight last weekend because their leggings were deemed inappropriate. The girls were denied because they were flying on a free family program and didn't meet dress code standards. United did tweet out to our customers, your leggings are welcome. It is controversial, guys. Dan.
Well, Pitchfork, to me, this is Pitchfork Nation at its worst, because there's, speaking of what Principal Guy said, context, once again, there's no context. So the original tweets that come out from another person at the airport who's observing this whole scene is 3 girls wearing leggings were basically told that wasn't going to work.
Get out of here.
Is United Airlines now in charge of dress code?
Yeah.
Well,
then a movie star gets it.
Exactly, and they get in on it. And eventually we get the fine print, which is, well, no, they didn't, whatever you think of this move, they weren't picked indiscriminately. They are on free passes. Many airlines, I got emails from a bunch of airline people saying, we all know this. This is the reality of it if you're going to fly. They have their rules in place. So by the time you get to the entire story, it doesn't matter because people want to double down on their outrage. They've decided, nope, today I'm going to be outraged. And so they don't care about the fine print, which was the rules are the rules. I may think they're a little archaic, but they're out there. And it wasn't a case of they're picking out women in the audience that are about to get on a plane, and we're going to not allow you to wear leggings.
Well, and let's face it too, the girls who are traveling get a huge favor for getting on this.
Absolutely.
So that's if you're going to take that benefit,
trade-off.
you have to adhere to their rules. The only question that I would ask is, do teenagers or really young people are they held to the same standard? Are they expected to know all the ins and outs of the rules? Can you let that slide a little bit, saying, hey, you're 13 years old, okay, let's just let you slide. But the next time you do it, just remember.
Well, and is there an inconsistency as to how it's applied, is I think what you're asking.
Exactly.
And probably there is, I would guess. But it just so far from the original outrage meter in terms of how that was presented, and frankly by some media outlets. I'm not quite as down on the New York Times as Trump, but they didn't mention that fine print until paragraph 9. Now you're an AP guy. You know the basics of journalism. That's got to be within the first 2 paragraphs of that story.
Context is everything.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure is. Next up, the Oakland Raiders are headed to Las Vegas. NFL owners approved the move that's set for 2020. Vegas stepped up with $750 million in public money to go to the nearly, I think, $2 billion stadium. This is the 3rd team relocation in just over a year. John?
Yeah, I think we talked about this. I mean, the troubling part is I think they're moving to a less desirable market with bigger issues in place just for the money. It's a total money grab. I mean, the Bay Area and those Oakland fans, the Raider fans, you can't argue they don't have support. They don't have their stadium, but in terms of fan support,
they don't have the infrastructure, but they do have the fan support.
In terms of market desirability, all of those things in favor of Oakland.
Absolutely.
And so that's a real problem. What it does show is that the Vikings, had they not built US Bank Stadium, would be in LA, would be in Las Vegas, would be somewhere else. Unfortunately, you can feel bad about it. You can hold your nose and say, boy, this is a bad deal for us, and we had to pay $450 million in public money to help out a private company. But at the end of the day, you have to prioritize, do you want the Vikings here or do you not? And I think too many people early on thought,
they assumed,
oh, you're so naive.
Yes.
Let's call their bluff.
Don't be rubes.
Let's negotiate with these guys. And they would have been gone. We would not have the Vikings here today.
And as you say, they would have been gone to, even though there hadn't been anybody in L.A. for a while, a much more viable long-term market than Vegas. It is odd. The league is that we associate with stability. Suddenly we have all this movement, and maybe it'll all work. And the owners love it because it fattens their already pretty fat wallets. But, we usually associate greater stability. And now, will it work in Vegas? I don't know. Maybe it will. But you're exactly right. If they're willing to move to Vegas, they were absolutely willing to move 1 or 2 teams to Los Angeles. And that was the hammer that they effectively held over the town here. And you don't have to like the deal. But you can't deny that was real, and this is pretty much, all this movement has been pretty much confirmation that they were in a new mode and ready to go that route.
We just have 1 more minute left in the segment, so we wanted to just do a quick sidebar and get to Teddy. Vikings fans excited to see his Instagram video throwing the football, and Coach Zimmer reiterating that he's committed to Teddy Bridgewater. Dan?
Well, I mean, everybody's rooting for him.
Right. Zimmer's tickling his feet, I guess. Did you see that?
I saw that, yes. Look, but I mean, nobody, the video's fine, but let's be honest, they've even said no one really knows. If I still, based on what I've heard about the significance of the injury, and this isn't a reflection on Teddy, it's a reflection on the significance of the injury itself, that it's a long shot that he's ever going to be the same quarterback that he might have been. And if he is, hell of a story, right? And you'll be writing it, I'm sure. But it's still very much a long shot. It's why they've hedged their bets twice with the trade they made, and they want another veteran quarterback, as I understand it, to back up Bradford.
Well, and the good thing is they do have Bradford, so Teddy doesn't have to rush back. Take another full year and then see where you're at after this season, and hopefully things will look a little bit better for him. You bring in another quarterback to back up Bradford as well, then you're in pretty good shape that way, I think, on a quarterback level, and you don't have to pressure Teddy.
I'm still more worried about the offensive line, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
Allegedly, we got 4 linemen now, according to the head. We got 4 starters, according to the head coach.
Time for the lightning round. No more tape delays. NBC announced that its coverage of the 2018 Winter Olympics will be broadcast live due to online streaming, low ratings, and the public demand for it. Dan?
I love it. It's the way it should have happened. And now I don't have to listen to people whining about, you're giving the results about stuff that happened 5 hours ago, and I was going to watch it on the primetime feed, which we get on the radio all the time. I love it.
Technology has gone too far to do it. You have to do it. And you can replay the highlights and the main events at night if people want to watch them.
Next up, the Wild won 5-1 against the Senators, their largest margin of victory in 2 months. But is this team still not back to where they were, John?
Goalies are a little weird, right, Dan? I mean, Dubnyk can be unstoppable for a while, and then he can go into a funk, and now you got Stalock as the new savior, but that's what they need. They need somebody in net to stop the puck.
Will Stalock start Game 1, first round of the playoffs? Hey, I don't think you can rule anything
You think I'm not a puck guy? Michael Layton, Philadelphia Flyers, 2010, claimed off waivers, took him to the Stanley Cup.
Got to keep going. A couple of local wineries filed a federal lawsuit against the state due to harsh weather conditions. They want to be able to use more out-of-state grapes. Current law requires them to use homegrown grapes in a majority of their products. Dan.
You can't make it up, but then it's such a Minnesota story.
Are we? I didn't know we were a big grape state.
I had no idea. And are they, I mean, like I said, are you putting these companies in peril because they're using grapes that are, I don't know, is it Colorado grapes like Colorado sod at the stadium?
Maybe California grapes I think are pretty good.
I would think that's true. This is absurd.
I mean, don't fight big grape, though. That's what we've learned about
let's
that.
not be so insecure.
Be careful.
Okay, you can drink a lot of wine in retirement. Bankrate.com saying Minnesota is the 5th best state to retire. Our strengths, healthcare, and cultural vitality. Our weaknesses, the weather. Go figure. John?
I'm offended, actually. 5th? Why not 1st? Iowa is ahead of us, actually. What?
How is that possible?
It's an outrage. I mean,
Wisconsin's not ahead of us.
No. I think they're 9th or something, but this is we're being underrated as far as I'm concerned. We should take this as a slap in the face.
Based on our bike paths alone, we should be top 2, for sure.
Well, I can tell you New Hampshire was number 1, and Arizona and Florida didn't even crack the top 10.
I believe it.
Yeah, interesting. Bob Dylan's handwritten lyrics for an unpublished song about Wisconsin are up for grabs. They're being auctioned off. Opening bid, $30,000. He also gets his Nobel Prize this weekend in Sweden. Dan?
Well, I'm not going to put in a bid. Are you?
I'm gonna dip my toe in the water.
The big question for any Minnesotan, especially an insecure one, is does he rip Wisconsin in this song? I don't know.
No, he doesn't. I think
he
says Madison and Milwaukee set my heart aglow.
He never said that about us. Did he ever say that about Duluth?
My sources say they're painting over the mural downtown right now.
We should have protests this weekend for the Nobel thing.
The good question is unpublished though. Maybe he got thought better of it afterward. He had a crisis of conscience.
Thoughts?
Yes,
that might have been it. You're right.
We'll find out how much they go for. And then last up, due to the big Oscar snafu with the best pitcher, the wrong best pitcher, the accountants won't be able to use their cell phones backstage because if you remember the 2 that got in trouble, they were tweeting photos of stars just before giving the wrong envelope to Warren Beatty. Dan?
I'm actually disappointed because I think, well, first of all, I'll go ahead and do the requisite Trump joke. Is there any chance that they can get his cell phone banned in the Oval Office? Because that would be, I think, more helpful. But I like it when things go wrong better. Of course, it's easy for me to say, but because I'd have to go up there and then go back down and not get my award I thought I'd earned. But I kind of like this. We need the suspense.
I'm sleeping better at night knowing this grave injustice could never happen again. Yeah. Like that, I was horrified watching Moonlight. Moment ruined at that.
Well, is there going to be I wonder if there's going to be an independent inquiry on exactly that. If it has been already.
They should retape it and.